Hello and welcome to this vlog. I'm now realizing I shouldn't have started the vlog now because I have a tablet underneath my tongue and I can't speak. Why did I start? Okay, let's do this in a second. Alright, we're back. And I do not have my allergy tablet under my tongue anymore. It is so nice that you're here today. We're going to start a new reading vlog. However, I have to work first before I can go reading. I need to enforce some rules. I would like to try some Colleen Hoover because absolutely hyped author on TikTok, and it seems like people absolutely love her or absolutely hate her. So I am super excited to see what I will think of her. And as you can tell, these are not my usual surroundings. I am not in Germany right now. I am in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, visiting my family. I'm basically just working from here for 4 weeks. I'm living that American life, I guess. But I'm gonna head out to a coffee shop to work because I desperately need to work, but I can't concentrate while I'm here. Let's work first. I need to work desperately. Alright, so I've finished editing my video, which I'm very happy about because that was the big task for today. I do have some smaller tasks, but before I get to those, I'm going to go to the grocery store and get some things that I need. And then I'm gonna head home and go for my run because I prefer to run like late afternoon, early evening, so I'm not getting into a time that might not be safe. You know, you never know. So let us check that out.
Head northeast on North Prospect Avenue toward East Kenilworth Place.
Hello, we're back. It's actually the next day because I completely just needed to chill last night and I just watched TV the whole evening, which sometimes you need, right? So now it is Tuesday evening and we are going to start the first Colleen Hoover book. Now I went through Libby, so I didn't actually purchase this book on the Kindle. I just have it here. My hold came through, so now I can read it. And currently my sleeping comfortable things are in the dryer, so I'm so excited to get into them in just a minute. So I'm going to start with It Ends With Us. I googled in what order I should read it, if I should read It Ends With Us first or It Starts With Us first, because it kind of made sense to do It Starts With Us, but it said online to start with It Ends With Us, so that's the first book that we're going to go with. So that's what we're going to load right now. We'll see what I think, I guess. We have some appropriate things to drink. I have my little poppy soda. So let's have a good read. Let's chill.
There's a new day that will come again tomorrow. There's a new day to wash away the pain.
Good morning, everyone. I have a wonderful looking breakfast here. Very excited to have that in just a minute. But I thought before I would continue reading, I'd give you my first few thoughts. I don't know if you can see it on the footage from last night, but I did have a few eye rolls. Sometimes what I don't like about romances or like modern fiction is that stuff can be like super like semi-deep, you know what I mean? It's like cringy deep, and I just kind of don't like that, especially with things like, I don't know, I think the guy that this is obviously about, Riley, I think, he was like, oh, you know, there aren't inherently bad people, there are just people who do bad things and stuff, and it's just like, come on. There were several of those things where I was just like, are you serious? I'm definitely noticing that this may not be my type of fiction or may not be my type of genre, which is totally fine. You know, sometimes it just isn't it. But what I do have to give Colleen Hoover is that she's quite good at like writing something that you want to keep reading. So very often if I have like cringy moments like that, often I will DNF the book after like 1 or 2 chapters because I'm just kind of like, no, this, this isn't for me. I already see where this is going. But with this book, I'm kind of not sure where this is going because I've heard so much about Colleen Hoover being super traumatic author. I'm not sure if this is one of those books where you like still get the happy end. So I'm kind of interested to see if that will come up or not. The abuse in this story, so I guess I don't want to spoil her too much, but there is already something that our protagonist is reflecting back on that was abuse in her family. I don't know, it's not being put into context, you know what I mean? So usually when I read books and there is some form of trauma or abuse, you're introduced to it fairly slowly. It's, hinted at for a long time, and then you're kind of introduced to it, and then once you read about what it is, it feels like it's still kind of packed into the story, and also like put into context and reflected a little bit. Whereas with this, I kind of feel like it's just like, part of the storyline. It's like smack dab. We start right away with the issues and we start right away with the stuff, and the protagonist isn't really reflecting it. I mean, she is to a certain point, but I'm still very excited to continue reading. Like I said, she's very good at like compelling you to read more. So I charged my Kindle overnight, and then we will continue reading this with my breakfast. Necessarily rooting for them, but yeah, the chemistry between the two of them, you're like, the whole time. All right, it is now 10, so I've been reading for 2 hours. I am now at 43% in the book, so I took another good 23%, added another 23%, and I am intrigued, I have to say. I mean, I'm still kind of not on board with the way some of the things were written. I don't know. It's like, I can't really explain. I cannot put my finger on it. But what I said about the trauma stuff before, still the same thing. I think this book needs quite a few trigger warnings, and I didn't see any, at least in the Kindle. I haven't had the physical book in my hands. I mean, there are a lot of books that don't necessarily have the trigger warnings, but imprinted in them. But if you are thinking of reading this book, I highly suggest you look at the trigger warnings beforehand. And because of that, I'm kind of interested in, I mean, I get the criticism of how a lot of people say that they don't understand why these are marketed as romances. I completely 100% agree on that, and I am only 43% in. But what I do have to say is that story-wise, it's definitely a book where you're like, you definitely want to know what's happening, and I mean, that's always really fun to read. Also, another person has now showed up. I'm not going to spoil her. But I didn't expect this person to show up, so that's interesting. So I have to get ready now to meet my uncle for an early lunch. So I'm going to do that, and then we will continue reading later.
Open air, side by side we sway there in all the colors. Summer love, lonesome love, folded on the lawn chair in all the colors.
So I am now 53% into the book, and something has just happened that I expected to happen. I guess now begins the discussion of what is love and what is an obsession. I definitely now understand why this book, and I also agree that this book should not be marketed as romance. I totally get it now. There were several red flags, and our protagonist obviously is overseeing the red flags, which does make sense, like, in the pattern of abuse. So that's why as a fiction story, I find it interesting. I guess it depends on how it's going to be wrapped up at the end. That's kind of like where I'm going to be like, okay, so now we've hit this point like halfway through the book, so let's see where it goes from here on out. Because it could go, depending on how it goes, it could be good, and it could be a good development, or it could be terrible. Let this thing focus on me for a bit. There we go. I went for a run. I've showered. I have not washed my hair because tomorrow is a filming day, so I need my hair nice tomorrow, so I'll do that then. And it is time to make some dinner. Now I'm gonna make some pasta with tomato sauce and veggies. Like, it's gonna be a mess. And simultaneously I will be listening to my audiobook. So let's make some dinner. Excuse the weird hair. It's gonna get fixed tomorrow. But for all of my American viewers, how do you live with ads in streaming services? Seriously, this is like the most upsetting thing to me, that streaming services have ads here. Like, what? What is this? We don't have that. We do not have ads in streaming services. I think maybe Netflix added like one plan where you have ads, but that one's like $4 a month. I'm like, okay, if it's that cheap. But these are like $10 a month, and I'm still getting ads. What is this? This is the most annoying thing since I have landed here. Seriously. I hate these ads. I hate them. What is up with this? Reading is back on. I have my Kindle. The ASMR ambiance is also on, so we have a good, nice ambiance. Part 2 just started, and I know that part 2 cannot be a good thing. Part 1 was happy. Part 2 is not going to be happy. She's going to be using that number. This is not going to end well. She's going to be using that number. She's going to be using that number. There's so much love bombing going on, and I'm just like... 67%, guys. Shit's gonna hit the fan. Shit is going to hit the fan. This is not a romance. I'm gonna just quickly update you here because I'm at 83% and I'm going in for the home stretch. It is only 9 o'clock. I go to bed at 11, so I'm gonna be able to finish this baby by tonight. I mean, I don't know if this is the biggest thing that will happen in this book because we are only at 83% and you never know what can happen in the last 17%, but something not so great has happened, and I guess I was kind of expecting it because, I don't know, this dude was pretty much a walking red flag. And I have some mixed feelings about it. So for one, I feel like it's kind of good to see that those red flags actually pan out as a red flag, because I do feel like that there are a lot of romances out there where we have red flag behavior by men, but then in the end they turn out to be wonderful people. And usually that's not reality. So in and of itself, I think it's kind of good to see, like, I guess a more, I don't want to say realistic version because this is a very extreme version of what can happen. Okay, so I just finished It Ends With Us, and I have a few thoughts. And I think I'm going to start out with some spoiler-free thoughts and then some spoiler thoughts, because I've been trying to record this several times and I haven't been able to find the right words, so I will do the spoiler-free part first. Okay, so let's start with the things that I thought went well. I think that what worked in this book was trying to explain the nuance of a person that is being abused, right? I think that's very important to mention in this book, because at least we had a lot of exploration of why it is difficult for people who are being abused to leave their situations. And at several points it was mentioned, that we're placing too much blame on the people who should be leaving their abuser and not really talking too much about why people are being abusive in the first place. And that maybe we as a society should teach people to be, not abusive towards women. And the other thing that she does very well, she really truly does very well, is that this was a page turner. It's a book you want to read, you want to know what happens. I started it yesterday and I finished it this evening. So obviously I did want to know what happened. At the same time, what I didn't like about the book is that I don't feel like the situation was wrapped up well. So I think there were okay elements to it because it also talked about the nuance from the abuser's side. There's also, I listen to a lot of true crime where there's a lot of experts and a lot of, psychologists involved, a lot of different experts in the field. What I have found at that point is that I think that every one of us could become a killer if something happened. Because most of these people that they look at, especially the people who have committed the most heinous crimes and murders, usually come from a pattern of abuse themselves. So very often, all of this lashing out behavior is behavior from a standpoint of trauma. I feel like that was also kind of brought up in the book, but that's something where this book completely lacked nuance. Having trauma and that resulting in bad behavior is one thing, but then learning how to deal with that and how to work through that is something that was not talked about much in the book. And what I could see happening is, because I think what the author was trying to do is make us also like the abuser in this situation, because she wanted us to like the abuser, because that would show the difficulty of the protagonist then having to get out of that situation. So I feel like that was quite intentional to make us like him, but that's why the ending to me doesn't work 100% well, because it still allows room for you to romanticize the situation in general. And I feel like if young people read this, because for example, I was young when the Twilight books came out, I was in my teens, and I read them and I absorbed them, and I just absolutely loved them, and I longed to have something that they had. And now I reread them as a grown-up last year, and now I just think, what in the holy hell of red flags? Seriously. And I think young, impressionable readers needed more of a wrap-up in that situation, or more, there should have been more discussion around the consequences and what needs to be done in situations like that, for it to be completely clear that we are not romanticizing any of this behavior. And of course it's not helpful that this book is listed under romance. Those are my spoiler-free thoughts on that, and I'm now going to talk about spoilers. So I will mark it in the timeline below and you can skip the spoilers. I thought from the beginning, okay, well, if this is marketed as a romance, then at least, we'll have a great tie-up with Atlas or something. It's just Atlas coming in on her 16th birthday to creep back so he can finally have sex with her. But the main romance of this book is an abusive relationship. Therefore, this is not a romance. I thought maybe in part 2 she'd have his abusive situation and then, come to terms with wonderful Atlas and how this would be, and we, look 10 years into the future and we see all these good things and great things, and then in direct comparison we can see, oh, this is a healthy relationship, this is an abusive relationship, and then I could have been like, maybe this could be a romance, but that did not happen. Therefore, this is not a romance, because we're then romanticizing an abusive relationship. So this does not work for me. This book lacked the fact that she didn't press charges. As I said in my spoiler-free review, I do think it is interesting and important to kind of explore that there was trauma on Ryle's side. Is it pronounced Ryle? I hope so. I think it's kind of good that that was explored on his side, but it wasn't really discussed. She just kind of dropped this bomb of oh, well, that happened to me, and it's not an excuse, but well, that's why I'm behaving this way. This is the explanation for my behavior. And it felt more of like an excuse or more of like a conflict plot on the side of the protagonist, whose name was Lily. Yes. So it felt like it was just kind of added to the story to make it more difficult for Lily to leave the situation because she would have an extra excuse around him. The other thing is that we didn't learn anything about how he's dealing in order to be alone with their daughter. I would have needed like receipts to know that he's like in therapy, that he's working on all these other things. Like, how does she know that he's not going to act out or lash out on their daughter because she's now gonna probably get together with Atlas? I don't know. That's something where I'm like, and the other thing is that I found it interesting that in nowhere in this point was abortion discussed. Now, I know that this is a very highly conflicting topic, abortion. Everyone has a very different stance on that. But having the child of your abuser is something that is extremely traumatic to a lot of people. I find it impossible that that thought didn't even enter her mind. I mean, I think they kind of wrapped it up by her saying, I think she was already 12 weeks along by the time she found out, and I think medically, I'm not 100% sure if that was in the book, and at least in Germany, I think you can't terminate your pregnancy after 12 weeks anymore unless there's a medical issue, so maybe that was the point, but I would have at least liked that discussion. I mean, maybe Colleen Hoover thought it was too difficult to put into the book because of, you know, the way abortions are perceived in the US, and like I could understand that. So I do understand why a lot of people don't like Colleen Hoover, and I'm assuming that in most of the books there's probably just going to be more behavior like this. So what is my verdict? I think my verdict is, in the end, that this is an important topic. Like, I'm glad that someone is writing books about this, but it was a partially irresponsible way of, and also just not, I mean, just wasn't the greatest writing either. Lily Blossom Bloom. Are you serious? I mean, like I said, I definitely would not consider this literary fiction to be. This was very modern fiction, so I mean, I'm just not expecting, you know, really good writing. Like, I have Emily St. John Mandel's newest book over here. Like, there I expect really good writing. I mean, this one I just kind of went in as well. You know, it's just going to be what it is. But Lily Blossom Bloom, I mean, this being popular among very young people, I understand why a lot of people are very concerned. But in the end, I hope that everyone hears enough discussion on the internet to understand and grasp that this book is filled with red flags. This is not love, this is obsession. I'm going to say this very clearly. This is not love, this is obsession. Now that we've made that clear, that's kind of my verdict on this for now. Am I going to read another Colleen Hoover book? Maybe. I don't feel like it right now, but yeah, let me know if you've read Colleen Hoover and what you think. She does write a compelling story. I mean, it was definitely a very addicting read, and sometimes that's fun too. So yeah, I hope you have a great day or evening whenever you're seeing this, and I will talk to you soon.